Well, I'm back, and I don't really know what I'm about to say, but I call this post "Wild Truth Chasing." And you know, I've mentioned here before when I get up in the morning, I talk to God. Y'all call that praying, and I have a conversation. I not out loud usually, but I guess I could if I wanted to. I just have a conversation just like I'm having with you or with myself or whoever's watching. I just kind of talk to God just straight up. And then sometimes in the course of that conversation with God, I'll say whatever's on my heart. And then at some point, I can feel myself slowing down. And then that gets more into like a meditative state, I guess you would call it, more of a receptive state, a listening state. And then something usually will come to me, and it'll be like sometimes a thought, sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's like lyrics, sometimes it's just ideas for sermons, different things like that. And this morning, I was thinking a little bit about a sermon that I'm working on for this Sunday called Christ is of Faith. It's kind of like a play on words of crisis of faith. I play on words a lot when I write sermon titles. That's just how I do it. And I was thinking about, well, one of the thoughts that came in my mind was a situation that happened early on in my family life. When Kelly and I found out that we were gonna have a child, our first child, I was like, a little bit nervous, a little bit excited, just all kinds of feelings. But also, I was kind of unprepared because I was in a situation where I was basically starting my life over for like the third time, trying to figure out what I was being called to, if I was being called to anything. But I wanted to do something that was authentic to me. And so I'm the type of person where if I don't feel like what I'm doing is authentic to the person that I am, I'll just start over and just trust that God's gonna catch me. I'll jump off that cliff, that spiritual or metaphorical cliff. So I was in that state when I found out that my wife was pregnant, and we were living in a basement apartment of a family member. And weren't doing that great financially, and but when we found out, we realized we probably had to move because we were going to have three of us now, and we couldn't living in that one bedroom apartment. And so we applied for like a housing thing, like kind of what do you call it, moderate income housing or affordable housing program. So we got into that affordable housing program, and we were pretty excited because we were going to now have two bedrooms instead of one bedroom, a bathtub instead of just having a shower. So we were just like, yay, this is exciting. We're gonna have a little bit more room. And so we moved into that place, and we stayed there for about a year. We moved in there right before our baby was born, lived in there for about a year, and then about almost like a year on the date of a year, I got a call saying that my dad was dying. And I had been going back and forth, spending some time with my dad as he was sick and different things like that. And so I flew out to be with him, hearing he was going to die. Flew out to be there. And then I get a call from my landlord, and they said, I had just renewed my lease. And they said to me, hey, Pedro, were you getting a military disability benefit? Because I get like a little disability benefit. Were you getting that when you signed up for the apartments? And I said, yes, yeah, I was. And they said, well, you forgot to put that on your original application. And had you put that on an original application, you would have made $132 more than what it would have been for you to qualify for this program. $132 more than what it takes to qualify. So I said, oh, okay, well, sorry, I don't really think about it a lot. And I guess I thought about it when I was doing this application. Long story short, my dad's dying. They're calling me, and they say, well, we're going to have to let you out of the apartment. You're going to have to vacate the premises in 30 days. I was like, I got to vacate in 30 days. I said, but I qualify now. I'm still under the threshold. And they said, yeah, but we would have never let you in the apartments if we knew you had that extra $132 a year. I'm not talking 132 a month. I'm saying 132 a year. And so I said, well, I'm not even home right now. I'm with my dad. He's dying. And my family's back in Massachusetts. And they said, well, you're going to have to be gone in 30 days. And this is like an organization that's supposed to be trying to help people or whatever the case may be. But when they saw that $132 a year, they evicted a person with a baby and their dad dying. And They didn't even care. And that taught me something. And when I was in my prayers this morning and I was thinking about what I was going to preach about some of the challenges of faith and stuff like that, that was one of those moments, where I got a baby, my dad is dying, and then I get a call from the landlord telling me I got to move out because a year or something ago I made $132 too much. But this is the world we live in, and I'm not saying it to complain. I'm not saying it to be down. I'm lifting it up because I think that in this season we talk about Christ and all these things, and we revisit this story over and over and over again for I don't know how many years, but how much do we get out of it? In this situation, when I was praying about the sermon and that story came back in my mind, I was thinking about how this season we talk about how there was no room in the inn for Jesus, Jesus's parents and Jesus for him to be born. And I think that the reason why we repeat that story over and over again is because we sometimes find ourselves in a situation like the people with my apartments, where they could have been more compassionate or something like that, but they had no room at the inn for me and my wife and my baby. Even though my dad was dying, they had no room in the inn for us. And with the story of Jesus, a lot of people had no room, but then somebody gave them a little bit of space. And when they gave them that little bit of space, a miracle happened for all the people, And so I guess my rambling right now is to encourage people that when you find yourself in a situation where you have crisis of faith or challenges and things like that, and you don't feel like there's any room to deal with that challenge that's in your life, maybe people turn you away and people ignore the things that you're going through, but somewhere out there's some space, may not be the ideal space, but there'll be some space that's open up for you. And if you can receive that little bit of space, maybe something beautiful can blossom. What ended up happening with us after we got evicted, we just had to like drive around and try to find a place with no real notice. And I saw like a little sign that was on this. I didn't even know what town I was in because I was driving around trying to find a place to live. And somebody had a little sign, and they had a little apartment that used to be a massage therapy office behind the house. And that's where my wife and I and our kid lived for like 3 years. And we went back to a stand-up shower and no bathtub. And, life has changed since those times. But it took us a while of running into things, challenges, finding no room at the inn, and being willing to have to be recreated, sometimes by choice, sometimes not by choice. So I guess I'll just leave you with this. If you find yourself with some challenges, some crisis of faith, that sometimes you can find Christ in the crisis. That's going to be the message for the sermon next week, that you can find Christ in the crisis. And I'm hoping that whatever you're doing, you find Christ in the crisis of your life. So thanks for taking the time to listen to this. I know I kind of like rambled, but hopefully it still has some points that connected with you in your walk. Take care.